I entered her apartment at 7:42 a.m. The floor was spotless, not just clean, immaculate. No blood, no chaos, no signs of struggle on the walls. Just her, a woman in her 40s, lying on the floor as if she had just lain down before her morning coffee. And the cup was right next to her, still warm. Half of it was gone. Whoever killed her wasn't in a hurry. He drank the coffee. He waited. This wasn't a robbery, not a burst of rage. This was something else. And that's what always gets me. I know where there's coffee, there are answers. I'm Alex Riley. People call me a private detective, but I don't chase cheaters or stake out motels. I go where the police say, we don't get it. And I do. She was lying on her side. The position unnaturally peaceful, as if she just closed her eyes and decided, that's enough. I've seen plenty of scenes like this, but something here didn't fit. Her fingers were tense, not clenched into a fist, but stiff with strain. In the corner of the floor, tiny shards of broken glass. Not from a window, from a lamp, which means there was movement. She didn't just lie down and drift off. The coffee cup was perfectly upright, not a drop spilled. I leaned down, checked under the table. That's usually where the real clues hide. A heel print. A woman's. Just one. So she wasn't alone. I snapped a few photos on my phone. Not because it's my job, the police already did that, but because I don't believe it until I see it in a picture. A photo always tells it differently. Someone sighed loudly behind me. I didn't turn around. I already knew who it was. The department says it was a heart attack, said a voice behind me. I say, what would she have died from? It was Max. New guy, young, still too polite to be a real cop. He stood in the doorway, holding a tablet like it made him look smarter. She did have heart problems, he added. Medical file confirms it. Pills, prescriptions, everything checks out. I stood up and walked over to the table. Looked down at the pill box. Everything was fine. Too fine. If it was a heart attack, I said she'd still have the cup in her hand, not neatly placed on the table. Hearts beat, then they stop. People don't titty up before they drop dead. The kitchen was spotless. Too spotless. No crumbs, no stains, no signs of life. I ran my finger across the hood above the stove dust. So no one's cooked here in a while, which means the cup wasn't hers. Someone brought it. Someone sat here. Someone knew where to place it. Max was scrolling through something on his tablet. I didn't stop him. He had to learn on his own when tech helps and when it gets in the way. Then a soft creak outside the door. Quiet. Careful. Tiptoes. I opened it. A woman, maybe 60, wrapped in a shawl, clutching a grocery bag, and wearing that look. I'm not eavesdropping, but I know everything. I live across the hall, she said without waiting for a question. I heard there was... She didn't finish. Just peeked past me into the apartment. I stayed silent. Max stayed silent. That usually works. I knew her. Natalie. Sook, a sweet woman. Quiet. Never made a fuss. When I saw her lights still on all night, I knew something was wrong. She always turned them off by 10. I swear I used to set my clock by her window. Then she hugged the grocery bag tighter. And someone came to see her. I looked at Max. He was already reaching for his tablet. A man, she added. Dark jacket. Didn't see his face. But he rang her buzzer at 9:47. I was making tea. It's my routine at that time. Are you sure? Max asked. Absolutely, she nodded. I remember thinking, it's late. Natalie never had visitors at night. I locked the time in my head. 9. 47 p.m. And I thought that's too specific. People don't remember when they make tea, not unless someone asks them to, or unless they want to be remembered. The stairwell smelled like old tiles and something faintly vanilla. Scents like that stay for decades. Max walked beside me, quiet for a while. Then he said, "You got a theory?" I looked at the railing paint worn off on just one side. Theories are for people who don't know how to listen to facts. He didn't say anything back. Smart move. On the ground floor, the building manager was waiting. Mid-50, suspicion in his eyes, and a keyring that clanked like prison chains. "Is the camera working?" I asked. "Well, it's there, yeah." "Recording?" "Sure. But it's dark at night, not much to see." Max was already on the laptop, pulling up the footage. I watched over his shoulder. Grainu. Black and white. Lagging. Timestamp. 9:47 p.m. Door opens. A figure steps in. Male. Hoodie up. Can't see his face. He doesn't knock. Doesn't look around. Just heads straight for the stairs. "He had a key," I said. Max nodded. "Or someone let him in," he added. I looked at him. He didn't say it like a theory. He said it like a possibility. Calm. Direct. "Good," I said. "So you do more than just poke at screens." He smiled. First time that morning. We stepped outside. The air was crisp. I took out a cigarette. Didn't light it. Just held it between my fingers. Old habit from the days when having a cigarette meant you were thinking. "She was alone," Max said. "No family, no kids, no recent calls. So if someone came over, it wasn't random." "Here's the real question," I said. "Did he come for her or for something she had?" Her name was Sharon. Worked in accounting. The one Lena shared more than coffee breaks with. She shared silence in their texts. We found her in Lena's phone contacts. She picked up right away. There was shock in her voice and something else. Defense. "I have no idea who would do this," she said, sitting on a bench outside her office. Lena was quiet. Quieter than quiet. Always left at 5 sharp. No drama, no guys. Didn't even go to birthday parties. "Were you friends?" Max asked. We sat next to each other. That's not friendship. But we talked. Sometimes. I knew she lived alone. Everything about her was on a schedule. "Did she have spare keys?" I asked calmly. Sharon paused just for a second. Not scared. Just. Choosing her words. "I kept one. In case she lost hers. It was her idea, not mine. I gave it back a couple of weeks ago. Told her I felt weird carrying around someone else's K." "Did she take it?" "Yeah, right then. Didn't seem surprised. Just said, 'Thanks, Sharon. Everything's fine.' I didn't say anything. Max looked at me, but I gave him nothing. If Lena did take that key back, then somewhere out there is another one. Or she never took it." Sharon stood up, ready to leave. But I had one more question. "Lately, anything odd?" "The way she acted, spoke, the way she looked at you." Sharon froze for a moment. Not out of fear, she was choosing her words carefully. "I kept a spare key, in case she lost hers. It was her idea, not mine. I gave it back a couple of weeks ago. Told her it made me uncomfortable carrying someone else's key around." "Did she take it?" I asked. "Yeah, right away." She didn't seem surprised. Just said, "Thanks, Sharon. Everything's fine." I didn't say anything. Max glanced at me, but I didn't react. If Lena really took that key back, then there's another one out there. Or she never took it. Sharon was about to leave when I asked, "Lately, did you notice anything strange? In her behavior? Her voice? Her eyes?" She hesitated. Well, one time she came to work with her purse strap torn. Ayoged, someone grab you on the street. She didn't laugh, just fixed it and walked away. Max wrote it down. I didn't need to. I remembered. When we got back to the building manager, I asked a simple question. Who was the last person to approach her door before the paramedics arrived? The answer didn't surprise me. Delivery guy, food, Tayurek-san, around 10, after the visitor had already come. Did she sign for it? Nope. Paid online. He just left it at the door. We've got the receipt on file. Camera at the front caught his back. That's it. So she was still alive at 10 p.m., which meant the person who drank coffee with her was either still inside or had left through another door. Natalie's building just stood there, like it had let out a breath and never taken another. The front of the building was clean, tidy. But if you walked around back, everything changed. Dusty alley, trash, dead leaves, and a back door. The door was closed and I didn't try to open it. I just looked at it. Every door leaves a trace. If it's rarely used, dust settles evenly. But if someone's opened it recently, there's friction. A shift. A faint line where shoes scrape the concrete. There was a mark. Barely visible, but fresh. Someone had left through here. Max stood beside me, staring at the same mark, but saying nothing. What do you think? I asked. Could be the delivery guy? Delivery guys don't use the back door. They ring the bell. They wait. This mark's slow. Whoever left wasn't in a hurry. I crouched down and touched the edge with my finger. Right next to it, a tiny scratch on the wall. Like something metal had caught the surface. A bag? Max Quest. Or a key. Or a belt buckle. Or... I didn't finish the sentence. If he figured it out good. If not, he'd remember the moment he didn't. We were heading back when Max asked, You think she knew him? She knew him. Or she wanted him to think she did. He said nothing for a second. Then added, She ordered food. Means she planned to be alive. Right up to the end. I nodded. First time he said something that mattered. Not just because it was right, but because it hit the mark. I was back in her apartment. No protocol. No badge. No tie. Just me and her things. Places like this, you don't look for evidence. You look for discrepancies. An apartment is a reflection. If something's off in the mirror, you feel it, even if you can't explain why. There was a notebook on the table, pages torn out, but the cover looked new. People don't keep blank notebooks next to the phone. Someone removed those notes. Maybe she did. Maybe someone else. I grabbed a lamp and held it over the edge of the page. On the corner, a faint indentation from a pen. Whoever wrote pressed hard. The words were unreadable, but the rhythm short lines, like a letter. I opened the drawer. Inside neatly arranged envelopes. Bills, insurance, receipts, everything in place, like someone afraid to miss something important. But in between the papers, a thin tissue, twisted, crumpled, almost weightless, and a faint scent feminine, not hers. I ran a finger along the edge. Lipstick, red, not Natalie's shade. Someone cried here, I said quietly, and it wasn't her. Max walked in, paused in the doorway. Find something? I held up the tissue. Not hairs? Definitely not. Natalie's a blonde cool tones. This one's warm, bold. A different woman. A friend? Or someone who wanted to seem like one. We sat in the kitchen, Max scrolling through reports, me staring at the details. She had one missed call the night before, he said. Unknown number. No voicemail. No follow-up. Time? 7. 12 p.m. 2.5 hours before the one who drank coffee with her showed up. I nodded. They made plans, but not directly. Through someone else. Or she knew they'd call when the time was right. There was a receipt in her wallet. Line read Latte X Coxi, Cafe Maribel. Time 4:41 p.m. the day before she died. I knew the place. Small, with soft jazz and an old-school charm. You don't just stumble into Maribel's. And you definitely don't grab a latte on the run. The barista was a college kid, maybe 20. At first, he pretended not to remember. But when I showed him Natalie's photo, recognition was instant. Yeah, she was here. With another woman. Dark hair, glasses, strict type. They sat almost an hour. Talked quietly. I figured, lawyer maybe? Were they arguing? Max asked. No, not at all. Quiet as could be. Then, at one point, Natalie said something and stopped talking. The one in glasses reached across the table and just held her hand. I couldn't hear the words, but it looked like a goodbye. There was a camera at the entrance. Bad angle, but it caught the moment. The other woman leaves first. Natalie stays in her seat for 2 more minutes, staring out the window. Then she slowly gets up. She didn't look lost. Didn't look scared. She looked like someone who had already made up her mind. Who is she? Max asked. We'll find out, I said. But she's not the killer. How do you know? Because killers don't hold your hand. When you know, you're going to die. We found her name through the payment record. Deborah Lynch. Attorney. Private practice. Specializes in wills and estate law. Max raised an eyebrow. You think Natalie signed something? I don't think, I said. I'm sure. I knew Natalie, Deborah said as we sat down. Not well, but I knew her. How often did you meet? Max asked. A few times. For legal work, she came to me because she felt it was time. What exactly was she putting in order? I asked. Her will. She left everything to a woman named Maggie, her ex. They hadn't spoken in almost 10 years. But recently, Natalie reached out. Through social media, just sent a message. And Maggie responded. I listened in silence. Deborah wasn't lying. Not a single wasted gesture. And you didn't think it was important to tell the police, I said, that Natalie thought she might die. She didn't say she was being followed. Didn't ask for protection. She just wanted to close a chapter. It all seemed voluntary. She wasn't panicked. She was calm, and that was the scariest part. Max spoke before I could. But you felt something, didn't you? That she was afraid. Deborah looked at him, and for the first time gently. Yes, but it wasn't fear. It was sorrow. Not for the past, for the fact that she had no future. I stood up. You said everything was left to Maggie? Yes, I can give you a copy of the will. It's all legal. Address? It's in the documents. But Maggie didn't know about the inheritance. Natalie wanted to tell her in person. She didn't get the chance. I nodded. We'll find her. Actually, Deborah said, the will was made out to a different name. A man, Jared Collins. I looked over at Max. He just shrugged. Is he a relative? No. No family connection. No marriage. Just a name. Natalie came to me 3 weeks ago and said, if anything happens to me, it goes to him. Everything. Her apartment, her savings, even her car. I said nothing. Max stared at her, like he was waiting for a crack in the story. Why him? He asked. She didn't explain, but it didn't sound like romance. More like She owed him something. Or maybe the other way around. She didn't speak with warmth, Deborah added. She spoke like someone who'd made a decision. I asked her, "Do you trust him?" she said. She answered, "I owe him, he knows why." When we stepped out of her office, Max said, "This feels off." "It's supposed to feel off," I said. Murders disguised as natural deaths. They almost always look too logical. But this was the opposite. A man got everything, no explanation. And it wasn't love. It was leverage. The house was in a quiet neighborhood. Symmetrical lawns. Identical mailboxes. Hedges trimmed like they had standards. Jared Collins opened the door right away. Like he'd been waiting. Mid-40s. Neat. Reserved. Dark shirt. Clean jeans, no creases. Everything about him screamed controlled. No wasted movements. Alex Riley? Yeah, I figured someone would come. Come in. Inside, the place looked like a catalog. Not a speck of dust. Books alphabetized. Magazines stacked. Coffee freshly brewed. He wasn't nervous. Wasn't defensive. And that was the weird part. People grieving don't sit that straight. "I knew Natalie," he said. "We weren't close. More like old colleagues. We worked together years ago. She was in reporting. I was internal audit. There was an incident. She left. I stayed." "Were you the reason she left?" I asked. "Officially? No. But I didn't back her up. At the time, it felt right. Now, I don't know. Maybe I paid for it a different way." Max leaned forward slightly. "And you weren't surprised when she left everything to you?" "Of course I was. But she warned me. We met a month ago. At a cafe. She said, 'Take it as a fact, not as a gift.' I didn't get it then. Still don't, really." I watched his hands. Nails trimmed. No scratches. Watch polished, no smudges. Jared was the kind of man who keeps it all together. And men like that always hide something. "After her death, you didn't come forward." "Why?" "I didn't know what to say," he said. "It all felt like too much. I didn't feel like I had the right to explain anything." When we stepped outside, Max said, "He seemed put together, even compassionate." "Exactly," I replied. "People who really feel something. They usually look confused, shaken. This guy? He looked like he was following a checklist." "Alex Riley?" "Yeah, I figured someone would come in." We sat in the living room. On the table, a cup of coffee and a neatly folded newspaper. No panic. No excuses. "Yes, I knew Natalie," he said. "And yes, I know she left everything to me. I didn't ask for it. Honestly, I'm not even sure I agree with it. But it was her decision." "When did you two meet?" 10 years ago, he said. "She was looking for a way to disappear. I worked in private security back then. Personal protection, witness shielding, legal loopholes. She didn't ask to be saved. She said, 'I need my name to go away, just for a while.' She didn't ask the cost. Didn't say why." "And you agreed?" I asked. "Yes, because I saw it in her eyes. If I didn't help her disappear, her name would vanish anyway, just not on her terms. I arranged the exit, changed her address in databases, wiped her from a few registries. It was clean. A couple of months later, she came back as a new Natalie. We never spoke again." Max asked, "Why you?" "Because back then, I was one of the few people who could make things disappear without anyone asking questions. And she wasn't a liar. She just moved on. Quietly." "So she felt she owed you her life?" I asked. "She never said that. No, thank you. No sorry. Just, last year, I got a short letter. You know why? This is my choice." I looked at him. His voice didn't shake. His eyes didn't dart, and still, something didn't add up. Too composed, too prepared. Either he spent his whole life training his self-control, or he knew Natalie didn't just die. You ready to move forward? Now Alex returns to Natalie's apartment alone and finds an empty picture frame. A frame that has nothing to do with the will, but everything to do with motive. I came back to the apartment alone. Max stayed at the station, filing a request for copies of the will. I wasn't expecting to find anything new. I was looking for something that wasn't there. When people leave, suddenly, they leave chaos. Natalie didn't. Everything was where it should be. Bills. Receipts. Even a grocery list stuck to the fridge. Everything, except for one thing. In the living room on the dresser, there was a photo frame, right up against the wall like it had always been there. But the glass was empty. No fingerprints, no dust, as if someone had carefully removed the photo and set the frame back in place. I checked around it. No scraps of paper, no bits of tape, no rush. It had been done deliberately. So I started searching the apartment. Drawers, closet, kitchen shelves, even behind the bathroom mirror. No other photos. Natalie had removed or hidden everything from her life before she became Natalie again, except for that one frame. I returned to the dresser, squatted down. On the back of the frame, a tiny tear near the latch. Someone had opened it, not just once. I picked up the frame and gave it a slight shake. A thin strip of paper slid out, wedged between the glass and the backing board. Too composed, too prepared. Either he spent his whole life training his self-control, or he knew Natalie didn't just die. You ready to move forward? Now Alex returns to Natalie's apartment alone and finds an empty picture frame. A frame that has nothing to do with the will, but everything to do with motive. I came back to the apartment alone. Max stayed at the station, filing a request for copies of the will. I wasn't expecting to find anything new. I was looking for something that wasn't there. When people leave, suddenly, they leave chaos. Natalie didn't. Everything was where it should be. Bills. Receipts. Even a grocery list stuck to the fridge. Everything, except for one thing. In the living room on the dresser, there was a photo frame, right up against the wall like it had always been there. But the glass was empty. No fingerprints, no dust, as if someone had carefully removed the photo and set the frame back in place. I checked around it. No scraps of paper, no bits of tape, no rush. It had been done deliberately. So I started searching the apartment. Drawers, closet, kitchen shelves, even behind the bathroom mirror. No other photos. Natalie had removed or hidden everything from her life before she became Natalie again, except for that one frame. I returned to the dresser, squatted down. On the back of the frame, a tiny tear near the latch. Someone had opened it, not just once. I picked up the frame and gave it a slight shake. A thin strip of paper slid out, wedged between the glass and the backing board. Half a sentence, half a word. I forgive you. That was enough. No name, no date. But the message was clear. Natalie hadn't just kept a photo. She'd kept a message. For someone, maybe for the person who killed her. Max showed up half an hour later. I handed him the frame. Photo was stolen, he asked. No, I said. It was taken. Whoever did it knew what they were looking for. And more importantly, they knew where to look. Now we had a theory. The murder wasn't about the will, wasn't about the apartment. It was about the past, about who might have been in that photo, about someone Natalie had forgiven, but who didn't want to be forgiven. Max stood by the dresser, frame in hand. You think this ties back to the person she was running from 10 years ago? I don't think she was running, I said. I think she was disappearing. Temporarily. She planned to come back, which means she knew there'd be an ending, and she was preparing for it. She kept that photo until the very end, and then someone came and erased it. What if it wasn't the killer? Max asked. What if someone just didn't want the past getting into a police file? Then why leave everything else? I said, evidence, documents, meds, notes. Only that was taken. The photo, possibly the one where Natalie was with him. I stood up. People who want to forget, they burn everything. This guy, he removed just one thing, which meant he wasn't afraid of exposure. He was afraid of recognition. That evening, I called Deborah, the attorney. Did Natalie meet with anyone else in the past few weeks? I asked. Yes. Once, she said. After she saw me, she told me I need to look my past in the eyes, just in case. I didn't know what she meant, but she was calm. Do you know who she met? No, but she did ask me to print an old copy of her name change application. She said, I need to remind him of something. Someone he's forgotten. I hung up, and everything snapped into place. Natalie had called someone from her past, a man she'd hidden for 10 years. She didn't call to accuse him. She called to forgive him, and he couldn't live with that. Next step, Alex finds a digital trace, a backup of the missing photo left in the cloud or on a device. With Max's help, they restore it, and for the first time, they see his face. We drove to the station. Max sat at the desk. I stared at the screen like a mirror that hadn't shown anything yet. She kept backups, Max said. Google Drive, 2 cloud accounts, 1 external archive. Smart, I said. Very, I said. 10 minutes passed. Max clicked. Searched. Marked files without a word. Then he stopped. This one? On the screen, a photo. Natalie, 10 years younger, wearing a black coat. Next to her, a man. Not a profile. Not blurry. Clear. They weren't hugging. They weren't laughing. Just standing. Like 2 people who shared something important. And old. Max zoomed in on his face. That's not Jared, he said. No, I replied. And that's good. Who is he? Right now, no one. But now we have his face. We printed the photo. 1 copy went into the case file. The other I kept for myself. Not as evidence, but as a reminder. Sometimes the truth isn't in what someone did, but in the fact that they couldn't stand being forgiven. Max ran the image through the system. At first, nothing. Then a hit, an old school yearbook photo. Name, Lucas Trent. Lives in the same city. Work security for a private firm. No priors. Almost no mentions anywhere. Quiet, invisible. And it looked like he was the one Natalie had called to forgive. Now we reached the turning point. The confrontation. Not with a warrant. Not with accusations. But with a photo. Because this murder didn't happen out of fear. It happened because Natalie wasn't afraid anymore. We arrived unannounced. Private house. Blind. An old porch. Worn out door. It all looked sterilely, but not cared for. Like someone lived here who didn't really care what life looked like. He opened the door himself. 40-something. Fit, reserved. In his eyes, no fear, no anger. Just tension. Lucas Trent. He nodded. Alex Riley. Private consultant. This is Max with the police. Would like to talk. He nodded again. No words. Then stepped back, letting us in. We sat at the table. I placed the photo down. Said nothing. Just left it there. He stared at it. For a long time, 40 seconds, maybe more, then finally said, "She kept it." Max leaned forward slightly. "That's you in the picture?" "Yes." "Where was it taken?" "St. Louis."203-1. "Were you close?" "We were," he said. I didn't interrupt. His voice was steady, not a flicker of emotion. I knew she'd find me eventually. She was always like that. If she said she'd come back, she would. When did she come back? 3 weeks ago. She called, said, "I forgive you. I just wanted you to know." Max tensed. Forgive you for what? For not standing between her and the man who hurt her. I knew he was dangerous, and I got scared. I turned away. "Did you kill her?" He looked me straight in the eye. She was alive until she said those words, and I understood. Some people aren't killed for hate. They're killed for forgiveness, because not everyone can live with it. "Where's the photo?" I asked. He didn't speak, just opened a drawer, pulled it out an envelope, placed it in front of me. "It was supposed to disappear," he said quietly, "but you found it anyway. You found everything." I stood up. Max hesitated just for a second. "Will you come with us?" he asked. "Yes," Lucas replied. "It was over a long time ago. I just didn't know it yet." We returned to her apartment. No more tape on the door. No smell of coffee. Just silence. And emptiness. Jared sat by the window. Crisp shirt. Perfectly still. "So it was someone from her past," he said. "I always knew it would end like this." "You're right," I replied. "It was someone from the past. Just not hers. It was yours." He didn't move. I walked over to the dresser, set down the photo, the one we'd recovered from her cloud archive. "You said you'd never been in her apartment, but this photo disappeared, and we found it. In your house, wrapped in plastic. Wipe it clean. Except for one print. Yours. You knew she wanted to finish the story. You were afraid that if she started talking, her truth might pull your truth with it." "That's not true," he whispered. "Then explain why her time of death didn't match the official estimate. Why her coffee had traces of digoxin, a drug you can't buy over the counter. Why did you already know everything had been left to you before we told you?" Jared went quiet, then said softly, "She was supposed to go quietly. No drama. No past. I helped her like I promised." "No," I said. "You didn't kill her because you were afraid of the past. You killed her because she wasn't anymore." Max stood in the corner, watching. It was the first time he saw a man fall apart. Even while sitting upright, his posture perfect. Jared was arrested without resistance. No shouting, no struggle, just silence, like her death. But truth never leaves as quietly as those who try to bury it.